No, I'll make sure he goes down.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's council meeting. I must apologise for wearing some sunglasses. I've had a bit of a migraine headache and the lights line up with my eyes, so I'm not just wearing them for look like a movie star or anything like that. So please bear with me. I'm not my sparky self, but hopefully we can get through the meeting and have a good time. It'd probably help if every councillor put sunglasses on to make me not feel so badly about it. I feel pretty conscious about it. Can you do that?
Put glasses on.
Put glasses on. I welcome the gallery and the press to the council meeting and remind you that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed to council's Facebook and YouTube pages. I would ask for everyone to please turn all mobile phones to silent mode. Please be aware that a hearing loop is available in the council chamber. Staff members are able to assist you with this at any time during the meeting. Please remain quiet in the gallery so that everyone can hear the meeting. Anyone disrupting the meeting may be asked to leave. I would also like to remind members of the public watching the live stream that a copy of the agenda and information explaining council meetings can be found on the council website. Tonight you will see that we have 31 reports in open council and 1 in closed council, a transparency rate of 97%. We'll now move to reading of the prayer. Please stand as I call upon Pastor Julie Olsen of Turning Point Lyndhurst District Church to read the prayer.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we just thank you for our council here today. Lord, we pray that you will guide them, you will direct them. Lord, that every decision that they make will be for the good of the city of Casey. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Julie. And please remain standing while I call upon Reverend Deacon Matt Harry from the Casey Multi-Faith Network to read the faith statement.
The Casey Multi-Faith Network exists to promote peace, harmony and understanding, and to do so in partnership with Casey Council and the wider Casey community. We aim to spread knowledge and clarity about what different religions or worldviews believe, teach and practice. We believe that all members of religions and faiths have the right to peacefully practice and celebrate their own religion in a shared attitude of friendly coexistence and cooperation with all other peoples.
Thank you, Matt. Please be seated. The City of Casey acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pays respects to elders past and present. Councillors, are there any apologies for tonight's meeting? Councillor Gillich? Councillor Saray is an apology. Are there any other apologies? No? Can I have a second moved by Councillor Gillich, seconded by Councillor Jackson? Is there any dissent on accepting that apology? And that is carried. Thank you. Suspension of local law. Are there any items people wish me to suspend and go into local law for tonight? No? Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Is there a mover and second to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday, the 19th of June 2018? Moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Flannery. Is there any dissent? That is carried. Is there a mover and second to confirm the minutes of the special council meeting held on Tuesday, the 26th of June 2018? Moved by Councillor Stapledon, seconded by Councillor Flannery. Is there any dissent on that matter? Then that is carried. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest they wish to declare for tonight's meeting? Councillor Stapledon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. An indirect conflict of interest on items 6.3 and 6.17 as outlined to our acting CEO earlier today.
Thank you, Councillor Stapledon. And you'll remind us of those conflicts when we get to those items which will be withdrawn.
I will.
Okay, thank you. Officers' reports. We'll move now to officers' reports. Are there any items councillors wish to discuss tonight that are in the officers' reports? I will be pulling out item 6.9. Councillor Rowe. 6.2. Councillor Cristani.
6.3, thanks, Mr Mayor.
6.3 for Councillor Cristani. Councillor Smith. 6.13. Councillor Jackson.
6.17 and 14.1.
6.17 and 14.1. Thank you. Councillor Stapledon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry about that. I'd like to withdraw items 6.20 and 6.21.
And 6.21 is done. Are there any other councillors wishing to withdraw items for further discussion tonight? Is there a mover and seconder to adopt the recommendations listed in the officers' reports that have not been withdrawn for further discussion as follows? 6.1, 6.4, 6.5, 6.6, 6.7, 6.8, 6.10, 6.11, 6.12, 6.14, 6.15, 6.16, 6.18, 6.19, 6.22, 6.23, 6.24, 6.25, 6.26, 6.27, 6.28, 6.29, 6.30, 6.31. Is there a mover and seconder to accept those recommendations? Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Rowe. Is there any dissent on that? Then those items are carried. We'll now move on to public question time. Ms Frost, there are no public questions tonight?
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's correct. There are no questions.
No public questions. Then we'll move on to officers' reports that have been withdrawn for further discussion, and we'll commence with item 6.2. Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I move the recommendation in my name.
Seconded by Councillor Aziz.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a motion in relation to the appointment of members of the Smart City Advisory Committee. And I'm proud to be one of the portfolio holders, along with Councillor Aziz and Councillor Jackson. Casey is proud to call itself a smart city. We use technology, innovation and data to accelerate our progress in making Casey Australia's most livable city. And there are a few examples to demonstrate our claim. We are one of the first councils to use artificial intelligence. Can I have some of that?
You're not artificial, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you.
Neither artificial nor intelligent.
Machine learning, recently winning a prestigious award for our partnership in innovation. People keep coming up with these odd words. Innovation. Also, Mr Mayor, we have a low-range wireless network that is being progressively rolled out across our municipality. When complete, this will give Casey businesses and students the ability to attach their own internet-connected devices, capture data that helps them innovate. Councillor Aziz and Councillor Jackson have recently returned from a Smart City study tour, where they were frequently heard comments such as, Casey are really leading in this space, and we have heard about your innovative digital program. While we have had success, we are still early in our smart cities journey. We are really just laying the foundations, as I've said previously here, Mr Mayor, because that space is changing all the time. Creating a truly smart city requires the right mindset and culture, along with the technical skills to deliver it. This mindset is one of continually asking questions, experimenting and sometimes succeeding, sometimes failing. Always challenging ourselves to set bigger and better goals. This mindset is crucial in a space where the context is evolving so fast that if we stay still, we go backwards. So to simply do nothing is unacceptable. The pace of technology change and innovation is growing exponentially. The days of set and forget technology, buying hardware that is dated now within a matter of days, is no longer acceptable. We need to be far more agile in our organisation, with tight cycles of planning, doing checking and adjusting. We need to be open to new ideas and constantly learning about the best technologies and practices that are available to us. The Smart City Advisory Committee provides a platform for us to do just that. The committee will ask tough questions, provoke new ideas and encourage us to be bold and hold us to account to deliver as we try to take some of our biggest challenges. The proposed membership of the committee represents some of the brightest minds in the city of Casey, including successful entrepreneurs, academics, students, residents and smart city experts. And in creating an opportunity, Mr. Mayor, for these great people to have a say in our smart city program. We are ensuring that the initiatives we deliver will be successful and sustainable, delivering a great outcome for Casey's residents, ratepayers and stakeholders. And Mr. Mayor, I had the privilege of interviewing the majority of the successful applicants, and it was a really uplifting experience. These people were so excited about the opportunity of contributing to their municipality in such a way that is going to ensure our success in the future and our goal to be the best city, the best livable city and the smartest city in the nation and an example around the world. And it was a great pleasure to interview those people, to hear their ideas, their excitement and to just
Councillor Rowe, would you like an extension of 2 minutes?
I'll move that.
Moved by Councillor Aziz, seconded by Councillor Stapledon. Any dissent? That is carried. Continue on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a bare glimpse in a short telephone conversation filled me full of excitement and acknowledgement of what we believe, that we are already a smart city because of our people, because of our young people, and one young person who's specialising in a thing called algorithms. Now, I wasn't about to try and make out I knew what he was talking about. But to think the age of this young person, the level of schooling that he's at his young age, and to be specialising in algorithms just blows you away. And we're going to be part of providing these children and the rest of the community with access to the smartest city in Australia and the world.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Aziz, I believe you had a question, or are you aware?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll use an "Are you aware?" and I thank Councillor Rowe for that very capable introduction, and express how pleased I am to work with him and Councillor Jackson in pushing the Smart City portfolio forward. As Councillor Rowe alluded to, Councillor Jackson and I have just come back from a study tour looking at what other cities around Australia are doing in the smart city space, and we had the opportunity to visit Newcastle, Ipswich, Brisbane and Adelaide, and they're all cities in our nation that are at the forefront of smart city planning. Now at the start, when we first talked about this, it all seemed pretty much pie in the sky. What does a smart city mean? What does it look like? How much investment is required to achieve it and so on. But having visited these cities, we learned fairly quickly, Mr. Mayor, that you can develop very useful smart city capabilities in your city at minimal cost and sometimes no cost that can achieve great outcomes for your community and great benefit for your residents. These are initiatives, for example, that allow you to predict when infrastructure is about to fail. For example, when a water pipe is about to burst, and therefore you can go and apprehend it and actually fix the problem before the bursting occurs, and therefore save water, but also save a great deal of inconvenience to the residents that may be benefiting from that water pipe. It will allow you to map your city digitally so you can actually apply better planning processes, both from a statutory point of view, but also a strategic planning point of view, than we currently do at the moment, using drone technology and a whole heap of other stuff. So we were blown away by what these cities were doing. Councillor Jackson and I got on a bike, which is an electric bike that's powered by an electric motor, and took some very embarrassing photographs of ourselves. But the reality is this bike can solve a great transport need in the city of Casey, because there are spots in Casey where there is no connection between public transport and key infrastructure. A classic example is where you come from and represent Councillor Rowe in Cranbourne. Wouldn't it be great if we had these bikes that could then link residents or people coming to visit from the Cranbourne train station right to the Botanical Gardens? And these are bikes that are not like what the City of Melbourne has implemented, where it was an absolute disaster. These are bikes that are heavily regulated. They cost an absolute pittance to hire. But if you try and muck around with them and take one home or steal one, there's actually a $2,000 fine, and there's GPS tracking technology on them, so you can't get away from being a decent citizen using these bikes. And these are just key examples of what's been implemented in other cities, and I think Casey is right. And as Councillor Rowe mentioned, one of the things that blew me away is how well regarded already we are in this space, and how other cities are using us as a model, particularly in terms of the governance we've implemented, which has set an excellent launchpad for us to be able to become a smart city and realise our aspiration of both livability and smartness within the next decade. Now, Mr. Mayor, I'll conclude on this note, because I want to make two final points, and that is that none of this could have ever been possible without the knowledge and expertise and remarkable hard work of our officers, led very capably by the manager of our transformation office, Mr. Chris O'Connor, and his amazing team of professionals serving him. So, Chris, I take my hat off to you. I can't underscore enough how proud I was to watch the esteem within which you and your team were held, and the high regard within which you've actually been completely exemplifying yourselves. So congratulations and thank you on behalf of a grateful council. As indicative of that respect, not just in our nation, but now internationally, on Friday, Mr. Mayor, I'll be travelling to Singapore to attend a World City Summit to discuss smart cities of the future in the international community. Now, I'm pleased to say that the City of Casey is probably the only local government in Australia to have received this exclusive invitation to join this summit, and it's an all-expenses-paid trip by the Singaporean government. So it's costing Casey very, very little for me to be present. And there is a Mayor's Forum there, and I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for deferring to me to attend this forum in my capacity as a Mayor Emeritus. And I hope to, again, gain more learnings from that forum, and I'll be sharing the stage with the mayors of many other cities, many key cities around the world, and also with Mrs. Lucy Turnbull, the First Lady of Australia, the wife of our Prime Minister, who's there in her capacity as the Commissioner for the City of Sydney. And so it's a great opportunity, again, to promote Casey that comes at almost no cost to the ratepayers, and is really indicative of the international regard, not just the domestic regard, but the international regard that our great city now has, working on transforming ourselves to service our residents better, to provide the best possible quality of life at the cheapest possible cost. I cannot be more proud today, Mr. Mayor, of the achievements that we have collectively made, and I'm deeply honoured to be part of this portfolio, and I look forward very much to bringing more deliverables and more achievements and more understanding on this topic in the coming months, and hopefully for the remainder of the council term. I thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that great information, Councillor Aziz, and keep up the great work. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just realised I do have a conflict of interest, the same as Councillor Stapledon.
Not in this item. Do you want me to?
Oh, sorry, is there any dissent on that matter? That is carried. I've just realised I do have a conflict of interest on item 6.3 and 6.17. So what we'll do, we'll listen to item 6.3 and 6.17 concurrently. That's one after the other. And I call for someone to nominate for a temporary chair while Councillor Stapledon and I are out of the room. Councillor Rosario? Councillor Smith. Is there a seconder for Councillor Smith? Councillor Aziz, is there any dissent? Then I will leave the room and we'll do item 6.3 and 6.17. Thank you.
Can I declare?
Yes, so Councillor Stapledon, you could declare.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to declare an indirect conflict of interest on items 6.3 and 6.17, and as indicated to the Acting CEO earlier today, and that is due to by close association, is what I have to say. So I'll exit out of the room. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a...
Move this one.
Yeah, Councillor Castani, moving, seconder.
Thank you.
Councillor Rowe. Councillor Castani.
Thank you, Mr Acting Chair. Sorry, Mr Chair. Thank you. I'd like to move the recommendation in my name. Oh,
We
we've
have a
already
seconder.
moved it?
Yep,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank the officers, particularly Callum and Carly and the others. Forgive me if I've mentioned someone crucial, and thank you very much. I must start by saying if it wasn't for former councillor and Mayor Mick Morland and former CEO Mike Tyler, this project would not have gotten off the ground and adopted by that particular council at the time. This is a jewel in Casey's crown, an absolute beautiful outcome. It turned paddocks into a beautiful sports precinct that is regional and is known across the state and perhaps across Australia. Council welcomes the updated Casey Fields Master Plan 2018 to guide the future development, renewal and management of the site over the next 20 years. Casey Fields is the premier regional sport, recreation and play precinct in Melbourne's southeast, known widely for its size and success in providing regional facilities for sport and recreation. Casey Fields provides critical infrastructure to support its tenant clubs and has enabled key partnerships with elite sporting teams, the Melbourne Football Club and the Melbourne Stars. Casey Fields hosts regional, state and national competitions and representative tournaments, AFL women's matches, AFL pre-season matches, women's Big Bash Leagues matches, major events such as Melbourne Star Family Day and huge number of school carnivals every year. The master plan delivers on Council's vision, creating Australia's most livable city. The City of Casey's open space strategy to create an active city by delivering a connected network of quality, diverse open spaces that improve livability and encourage physical activity, and the City of Casey's leisure facilities development policy to provide regional level facilities that support pathways for Casey athletes to reach the heights of their chosen sport. The public exhibition phase provided positive support and excitement from local residents and state sporting associations for the master plan and its future implementation. In keeping with the vision and courage of the local government authority to purchase an 84-hectare site for the sport and recreation needs of its community, Council is committed to ensuring full development of Casey Fields and look forward to delivering key projects including regional soccer precinct, regional netball precinct, 5-kilometre fitness trail, dog-friendly space, expanded play space and stormwater harvesting initiatives. And I believe maybe even a tram, I'm told by one of the previous meetings, you just never know. Hopefully we'll consider that in part of this beautiful plan. But I just want to commend this to the Chamber. I'm on the Casey Fields Steering Committee along with other fellow councillors, and it's an honour to be able to help oversee this and present this today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe, do you want to take the opportunity? Or? No? I'll just correct you on one thing. It was Councillor Ron Mantell that was. Oh. He was the instigator of Casey Fields.
Oh, sorry.
Can
I just correct something, because Mick Morland said to me himself, he says that he was asked to come and look at the land at the time. So whether Councillor Mantle...
I think I went with him to visit the land.
Okay, well, see, I wasn't there.
There was a paddock and a couple of sheds.
This is going back. It's okay. Yeah. Thank you for...
No, he was certainly, Mick was certainly a big supporter of it, but without Ron Mantle's coming up with the idea, it would not have happened. And former CEO Mike Tyler ran with it, which was great.
Yes.
Okay. If there's no dissent, I'll declare that carried. And we go on to 6.17. And Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I move 6.17 in my name.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rowe, thank you. Sorry. Wish to speak? No. If there is anyone to speak? No. No dissent? Carried. We can invite... They're probably having a coffee or something.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. And we'll move along to item 6.9, which is my own, and I'd like to move the Casey All Abilities Foundation recommendation in my name. Seconded by Councillor Stapledon. Thank you. And I would like to just congratulate all the officers who helped with the setting up of the Casey All Abilities Foundation. We have a board of 5 people now set up. The main sponsor is the Pearcedale Community Bendigo Bank, with Mr Darryl Sutcliffe, and he has put himself onto the Australia-wide board of the All Abilities Foundation for the Bendigo Bank Australia-wide, and hopefully we can get some funds through there into the Casey Fund. There are 4 activities at the moment, but will expand into more as the board, as the foundation expands, and that is writing for the disabled, football, cricket and HPV. The board will commence fundraising once the foundation is formally established, and I want to just thank our community engagement team who are doing a little bit of work with me at the moment in getting together some statements about what the foundation's about, inclusiveness, giving people opportunities and pathways in. So if you happen to learn to ride and you have a disability, you can go right through to riding a horse at the Paralympics or whatever that looks like, and the same for cricket and football and so on. So if a council delegate, and we are looking at getting a couple of council delegates and an alternative is sought for the board, this appointment can be made at the special council meeting to elect the mayor. So, and we will be doing that. We had a meeting the other night, and I want to thank Callum and his team. Everywhere I go, particularly on weekends, we're opening up sporting stuff and giving people opportunities that they might not have had, and this is really getting some support everywhere we go. The locals are just waiting for this to be formed to get on board. So we're going to have a launch, and then we're going to have a major fundraiser and see if we can get some serious money into the account to pay for things like a registration of kids, equipment, so they can be the best they can be in those 4 sports and expand upon those. So the emphasis is on sport and the arts. There is an ACE Foundation, and I know there's a Cardinia Casey Foundation which also supports things, but up until now there hasn't been a lot of money available through foundations for those particular groups, and I know the Cranbourne Football Club, Netball Club are really keen to get behind their locals, and there'll be also groups from all over Casey who can apply for funding from the foundation. I want to thank Mr Silvio Marinelli from Highview Accounting, who's done all the association rules, and also Miss Sally Francis from Tufton. She does the writing for the disabled. Miss Julie Cass, who's been involved with the All Abilities locally for 20 or 30 years. So we've got some great people on board, and we're lucky that the board are really well connected to businesses who are all keen to get on board. And the idea was to set it up and remove it from officers running it, because I know they're flat out as it is. And so this will be an independent board once it's up and running. And I just want to thank the officers for all their work and encouragement. And we're moving as fast as we can to pull it away from the officer's desk, but we know we have the full support of Callum and his team, accessing the Access and Inclusion Committee, and also our community engagement team have been invaluable help to me and the others on the committee to get the right wording in, so that when we launch we'll have a plan, what the foundation is, what it hopes to achieve, the strategy behind it, and how people can get involved and get some sponsorship. So it's coming together nicely. We're hoping within the next 8-10 weeks we can officially launch it. So thanks Callum, and thanks to all my colleagues who have helped. You'll certainly be invited to the launch of the All Abilities Foundation, and I'm sure every councillor sitting around here would know of an organisation that could benefit from funds from our local people helping local kids with disabilities. So I put that to my colleagues. Is there any dissent or questions? Then that is carried. Thank you very much. We'll now move to item 6.13, proposed toilet at Linden Place, Tufton. Councillor Smith.
Be moving the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Rosario.
Mr Mayor, perhaps I need some advice. I should have asked it prior. I've actually got 280 more signatures, 260 more signatures. Should I keep that for the petition segment, or can I just give them in?
I'll just take some advice on that. He's got a petition.
So can I just add that in now? Yeah, because the results are the
My
same.
advice is you can.
Thank you. This has been a good example of community agitation, and this came about because there's one man, I won't name him, but he's a resident of Doveton. He's on the phone constantly to me about different issues, and they nearly always, in fact, no, they always make sense. Some of them are maybe not so easily obtained, but this is one that he's been pushing for a long time. I was against the Linden Place toilet disappearing in the first place, but it was out of my hands at the time. It's proven that it is required again, so I congratulate him and to the DETA, the organisation down there, the Town Association, for bringing it up again. Without them knowing, Councillor Rosario and I had been advocating for a couple of years anyway, so by the time we got the first petition, we knew it was already going to be budgeted for, but certainly their agitation and the initial petition, and I've got a further 258 signatures here tonight to add to that. They are very pleased that it is coming. Can I just ask the question is, when do we expect it to be available? When is the Autumn Place project due to...
Through you, Mr Mayor, Autumn Place is scheduled to be completed in January next year.
Cool. Okay. I think that's good, and we know where it's going. It is going to be coming to Linden Place, and I know some of the traders have spoken to me down there. One in particular who'll be very pleased because he feels bad because people come to his shop asking to use his conveniences, but the problem is where they're located in his shop. It's just too dangerous and too risk to security to allow them. But he's very sympathetic to people that do need to go for a little break. So, Councillor Flannery, I'm disappointed that you haven't interjected with something about leaks or about time. Surely you've got something, a dad joke for us? No, he's not.
He's just dumped you. He's just hung you out to dry. He's hung you out to dry.
He's got me. Okay, but I'm sure they'll be coming, and in his next opportunity he will. So thank you, councillors, for this, and it's a good outcome for that community.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Did that one. Councillor 6.20, Councillor Stapledon.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to raise this raise this report and support the recommendation, perhaps with the support of my fellow councillor. Thumbs up.
Are you asking for a seconder?
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, the reason I've withdrawn this is just to thank our council officers, Mr Griffin and his team, for the great work that they've done on this. This is something very, very much needed indeed. You can just look through the report to see the level of detail that's been gone through in order to achieve the outcome that we have, and we'll look forward to hearing the feedback from our community once this goes out for their once they've been notified. But certainly this is a great outcome, and I just wanted to personally thank the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stapledon. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thank you. Now go to Councillor Stapledon again. Item 6.21.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. Again, I'd like to support this recommendation, please.
Again, seconded by Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Mr Mayor and my fellow councillors, this is so exciting. We've had a lot of work done by Mr Heath, Mr Gilliaron and Mr Shinny. And I would like to thank all of you and any other team involved. What a fantastic outcome. And Mr Mayor, if I could just take us back a couple of years where Life Central had a vision to create a cafe latte. So it's L with an apostrophe A-R-T-E. And it was all about having a latte and supporting the arts, But more than that, it drills a little deeper, and that is supporting people who have mental health issues. This is absolutely fantastic, giving them some work experience, perhaps even giving them a job, and having that wonderful thing that releases the endorphins and the serotonin in the brain, which gives us a great sense of well-being, and that is the arts. And this has just been fantastic. Initially, we were going to establish that at the old Shire offices, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful building, and it would have been a fantastic outcome. But what has occurred is that we've actually got the wonderful kitchens that have been in use over many years down at the Casey complex just next door to Casey Radio. And this is an ideal site for what is trying to be achieved with Life Central. I'd like to acknowledge Pastor Drew Gormley for the great work he's done, and also Anthony Cheeseman, who used to run the Madcap Cafes. Wonderful visionaries and very, very practical operators. So here we are. We're going to be set up in a place that I think is not as aesthetically stunning, because we've got that heritage building in the old Shire office, but so practical. We've got access to public transport. We've got a lot of youth in the area with the local schools and also the TAFE. We've got Casey Grammar, the wonderful Marnie Beck special school, and we've also got the Salvation Army in that precinct. Plus we've got the factory, we've got the shed where all the youth go to, the wonderful school, Casey Safety Village, Casey Race, and then the complex with the Casey Basketball Stadium, and what a captive audience. So public transport and an absolutely wonderful service that they can provide to so many people in that precinct. So I hope I got all of that detail right, but I have to just say thank you so much. Here we go, we're moving forward, and this is very, very exciting indeed. Great outcomes for people with mental health, great outcomes for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stapledon. Are there any questions or dissent on the matter? That is carried. Thank you. And that concludes our officers' reports in public. Consideration of officers of reports of committees. Is there a mover and seconder to receive and note the record of assembly of councillors as listed in the agenda? Moved by Councillor Cristani, seconded by Councillor Gillich. Is there any dissent? That is carried. Is there a mover and second to confirm the minutes of the Audit and Ethics Committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 19th of April 2018? Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Any dissent? Then that is carried. We'll move on to petitions, and I have one, and the petition has 159 signatures on it, and it is from Lisa Corrigan. Of course, they own a property in Clyde, a very large crop-growing property, and the problem is with this petition is there's a high-pressure gas pipe that... Oh, sorry, can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Stapledon, thank you for helping me out. Thanks, Ms Frost. The AGL are running from Crib Point to Pakenham high-pressure gas pipeline, and the stipulation on the gas pipeline is you can't crop near it or take heavy vehicles over the gas pipeline. They have used the shortest route from Crib Point to Pakenham, and unfortunately it goes through the middle of many, many farms, hence hindering the growing of crops in the food bowl. I'll just read a little bit of history. I might put up I don't know if you've got a slide to show. The red line is the proposed direct route. The black line is the one put together by farmers, which is a little more expensive but would have no impact on their farming of crops. So what we're advocating to in the recommendations is that an alternate route be sorted by the appropriate ministers, and that would solve the problem. They've been operating at 200 Tuckers Road. Their annual turnover on just this one farm is $20 million, and they have 150 employees. So if you multiply that by a number of farms, you can see the impact on crop growing and employment. They grow, pack and package safe, high-quality vegetables on a large scale and domestic markets. They're the nation's largest growers of kale. There's 12 million cost lettuces, 3 million bunches of celery, 5 million leeks contributed to their food supply just last year. The diagonal alignment, that's the dotted pipe, cuts our successful working farm in two. It will impact our ability to farm because our new restrictions on land use imposed by the pipeline and the way the alignment cuts off access to the farm from the South Gippsland Highway will make it very difficult for them to use the full optimum amount of their farmland. The pipeline corridor will take vital space that we need for relocation as they're moving a lot of machinery into a corner where they won't be able to go across the pipeline and get into a large number of hectares where they store huge tractors in sheds and stuff like that. So we might go back to the recommendations. So what we're asking on behalf of the it's not just people who own farms either, it's people who are concerned that why should someone be able to come in and halt so much food growing in the food growing bowl in the Green Wedge area that we're talking about. So we're asking to write to the appropriate ministers and get their support to go for the alternative route, which would simply solve the problem. So all the farmers would have all their land to farm and the pipeline would be able to go through and serve its purpose. So pretty sensible outcome, one would think. So are there any questions or dissent on the matter? Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I'm very much aware of this project, council is aware that the particular organisation that's been charged with this project is operating under the auspices of the Pipelines Act, which is a state government act which allows basically the government and anybody undertaking a energy sensitive project to basically do what they want. And I think the request by the farmers is more than reasonable because it appears from my viewing of the proposed route, they do right angle turns where it suits them and follows property boundaries where it suits them. But they are deaf to any alternative argument, and it will take the intervention of Tim Pallas and even the Premier Daniel Andrews in relation to this to have it stopped. I'm aware of at least one property owner who has received well, very strongly worded legal documents in which Mr Jackson would understand that can be quite threatening to some people. You know, these people have broken English and were very, very much intimidated by that type of gung-ho attitude by the organisation, and these people just needed to have the whole thing explained to them and to at least see that they're, you know, to see that their local councillor is standing up for them in this way is fantastic, Mr Mayor, and that being you, of course.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Rowe. I will add one more point, in that when we met with Lisa Corrigan and the Bass member, Brian Painter, member for Bass MP, there was a reference to the consultation that took place was basically AGL telling them what they were going to do. So it really supports the argument here, Councillor Rowe, and I'm just wondering, you did mention the Premier, maybe with leave of grant of permission from Council, that we add in that the Honourable Daniel Andrews be advised of this situation as well, since you mentioned his name. If we could add the Premier of Victoria, the Honourable Daniel Andrews, be alerted to this fact that his support is needed in a very sensible outcome, and that is to do the route that has been put together by many, many people in that land. It may cost a little bit more, but the disruption will be solved, and it's a very simple solution. So thank you for those words. Councillor Jackson.
Might I also suggest, Mr Mayor, the local member for that area as well?
The local area for the Mr Brian Painter. Yeah, and I know he's already on board. The member for Bass, Mr Brian Painter, I think it's P-A-Y, N-T-R, MP.
P-A-Y-N-T-R, Painter.
Support this matter. Yeah, can I have leave of council for those changes, please? Thank you. So are there any other questions or any dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thank you very much. Are there any other petitions for this evening? I'll move along to notices of motion. 3235, Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, I have, after a lot of consideration and a lot of people talking to me and giving me their views, I have decided to withdraw it. And I've withdrawn it on the basis that it's been pointed out to me that our attendance is already documented, and I accept that, and I do know that. I suppose what I want to explore down the track is whether we can do that in a more visible way, because the average ratepayer would have great difficulty finding it amongst all the items in the agenda. Mr Mayor, I take your advice that we could revisit this when a new CEO is appointed, and I accept that advice. And I thank my councillors for their offline debate. It's been very interesting.
And thank you, Councillor Smith, for that. We appreciate that, for those comments. Thank you very much. We'll move along to notice of Councillor Stapledon, Rotary Club of Cranbourne.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move this notice of motion in my name.
Seconded by Councillor Rowe.
Thank you very much. Mr Mayor, I'm moving a recommendation that we investigate how we might be able to provide $5,000 sponsorship grant for the Rotary Club of Cranbourne on an annual basis for their golf day. And I'm leaving it open for that report so that we can have serious consideration of this matter, and instead of locking people in, especially at the wrong end of the financial year. But the reason I've raised this is something that I've actually been pursuing for many years with this particular club. They do such a great job, and if you look historically, you will see that they have claimed very, very little in terms of grants. They've not received much money from council at all. In fact, in the last 12 months, they've received nothing. And if you went back further, I think for the last 5 years, you'd probably find out the same. So in terms of this, oh, sorry, we need a seconder? Or no, we're good? No, got a
No,
question.
you've got a seconder. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. This is about supporting a great service club that are holding an event that really does raise great benefit to the community, as well as raising great support for their chosen charity that they donate to. So I think there's a different one every year, but certainly they ask for very little, and I'm hoping that we can find a way, because I certainly have been trying for a long time. And if we do a comparison with other Rotary clubs, we're certainly very generous with our sponsorship to others, so I'm hoping we can be the same for the wonderful Rotary Club of Cranbourne.
Thanks very much, Councillor Stubbs. I just want to ask a question, then I'll go to Councillor Aziz. Just to the officers, are we aware of the figures that go to, we are about fairness, that go to other Rotary clubs so that they don't feel left out? Can anyone answer that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we'd have to take that on notice, and we can provide the information back to the council out of session.
Okay, thank you. And the second question was, I know we had a golf day which Mayor Emeritus Councillor Sam Aziz promoted. It was a major sponsorship, and we justified that because it was the Monash Children's Hospital, and they were special humidity cribs for very early premature babies, and many thousands of mums in Casey actually go to the Monash Children's Hospital, so it was an exercise in saving lives. And I was just wondering, Councillor Stapledon, do you have any idea what causes the money goes to from Cranbourne Rotary?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My ward partner is going to speak to this as well, but as I mentioned before, they choose a different charity every year, and I think the one that Councillor Aziz raised wasn't for that purpose. Yep, thank you. I do need to point out that, as I said before, other Rotary clubs do get significant sponsorship for us for other events, Australia Day events and other like events. Okay. So that's why I'm trying to really balance the books for Cranbourne, to give them greater support to do what they do in the community. Yep.
So you know that other Rotary clubs are looked after as well, so that's the main thing I was getting at. Councillor Aziz.
I wonder if Mr Mayor, I wonder if I can defer to my colleague Councillor Rowe to speak first on this issue, and then I just want to make a couple of observations and then ask a question, if I may, Mr Mayor.
So are you dissenting in any way?
Councillor.
Sorry, Councillor Aziz, are you dissenting in any way?
I'm not dissenting. I'm fully supporting this, but I've got a couple of observations to make.
Okay, so you're not dissenting, so I'll ask Councillor Rowe to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and Councillor Aziz. Mr Mayor, the Rotary Club of Cranbourne, for time, You can always say immemorial, but then if I say I remember it, then that makes me that old. But certainly from the time that I was involved and a councillor at Cranbourne in the very late 80s, and then the member for Cranbourne from 92 to 2002, the Rotary Club of Cranbourne has been a significant contributor to local charities, all of which have been done through fundraisers such as the annual Golf Day. It's a great event. It is very well supported by the local community, and of recent times other businesses in the community have assisted, but they are always running close to the wind. There was a time there where they were in fact not even going to be able to raise sufficient funds to run it, and it would have been a shame for that to occur. Some corporate partners jumped in and provided some funds to assist. So I recommend this because of the length of time that this Rotary Club has serviced mine and Councillor Stapledon's community, the great work that they do, the variety of local charities, Meals on Wheels, and the food van, and various other babies functions, charities, as well as providing funds towards disabled transport buses and the like. So I commend this to my fellow councillors. It is a long-standing philanthropic organisation of great value to Cranbourne.
Certainly is. Councillor Aziz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I begin by really underscoring how much I admire Councillors Stapledon and Rowe for raising this issue and the great work that Rotary does. My concern is that we approach these charity opportunities very much in piecemeal fashion. So you've already raised the issue, Mr. Mayor, that we've had support to the Rotary Club of Narre Warren, who run an annual Mayor's Shield Golf Day. And recently we made a decision after 25 years not to support that golf day, also to the tune of $5,000, and then came and basically reversed that decision and certainly supported the golf day of 2018. And so I feel that we need a more uniform policy across the city to support Rotary clubs whenever they endeavour to dispense funds to the community for the purposes of charity supported by the City of Casey. Because what I'd like to see is there is a multiplier effect associated with the City of Casey actually providing those funds. And as all of our colleagues would be aware, Mr. Mayor, that one of our key commitments to our community is to strengthen it and certainly assist those who are less fortunate than ourselves. And when we do that through reputable organisations like Rotary that not only have a strong domestic recognition in our nation, but indeed a very respected international brand, the $5,000 that we might be allocating will have a significantly higher effect in terms of its quantum and its reach than perhaps any other organisation. And the fact that it's got the imprimatur of the City of Casey as well also helps by encouraging other people to contribute to the cause. But the last thing I want is for us to see these motions coming up, allocating one to Narre Warren Rotary one day, one to Cranbourne Rotary one day, one to Endeavour Hills Rotary, and so on. We need a uniform policy that enables these clubs to seek our assistance in a manner that doesn't cause us or require us to reflect or question, what precedents exist or what have we done previously. We just need a uniform stance that actually accounts for our response to these matters. And you've already mentioned the Cribs for Babies, which was a very successful fundraiser where we also contributed $5,000, but in the end, hundreds of thousands of dollars were raised to provide Monash Children's Hospital with cribs for premature babies.
It was about $480,000, wasn't it?
Absolutely, nearly $500,000, Mr. Mayor, and all sprung from a $5,000 donation through the City of Casey. Amazing work, and a real credit to everyone else involved in that fundraising. So I'm wondering, with the indulgence of my colleagues, if I can introduce a third element to their proposed motion, and that is that after point 1, that council also investigate the feasibility of introducing uniform policy that would facilitate the city's support at a maximum annual amount to Rotary clubs for the purposes of charity. And then the next sentence would be that a new name be provided to cover such a program should it prove to be feasible. And comma, possibly including the role of the mayor. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll just conclude by saying is having some sort of mayoral program as the Mayor's Shield Golf Day or some other charitable program covering all these Rotary clubs, covering a certain amount of money. I mean, the reality is we have a significant budget. We owe it to the community to support charities where appropriate. We're not talking about a lot of Rotary clubs and a lot of money, and yet, as I say, the multiplier effect from such an allocation could do absolute wonders for those that are less fortunate in the community, and there's no better organisation to administer this than Rotary. They have such a powerful brand, and we should be using the brand to the advantage of our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aziz. How does the mover and seconder feel about that? And are you okay? Do we have leave of council to add those in? Councillor Smith, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, just
okay. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Just a question to councillors is: are you only intending this to apply to golf days or Rotary golf days? Is that what we're talking about?
No, I'm intending to apply this to Rotary clubs in general, whether it be a golf day or some other charity event. Some clubs may not run golf days, but yet they may still get a financial allocation from us at whatever quantum to offer, charitable services to the community. So whatever it is, but I just think instead of picking, Rotary clubs off as the opportunities arise, we do one uniform policy that covers all Rotary clubs, and then hopefully we don't have to raise that again in the chamber in such piecemeal fashion.
We'll keep on with Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just further to that then, my only concern is that we have a lot of other service clubs. Councillor Rosario and I have a very active Lions club in Hampton Park. Is it wise to pick off one group to have a uniform policy? So I don't know how you want to deal with that. I'm just thinking, how could we include other service clubs? But I know it's widening it, but Rotary do a fantastic job, but we've got other Inner Wheel, all those clubs that we've got in our city.
Yeah, Councillor Stapledon, it's your motion, so you have the floor.
Look, that's a really good point, and Councillor Rowe and I were just talking about that. We were talking about our Rotary Club. We've also got Kiwanis as well, Inner Wheel and Lionesses. So what I might suggest is that we have a maximum annual amount to service clubs for the City of Casey service clubs, because I don't know how else to do this. I'm not picking off and I'm not really comparing. What I was pointing out is that Cranbourne have done such a great job for so long and asked for nothing. And that's why I'm moving this notice of motion, and I will sum up and I'll talk about the great things that they do.
I have a couple more questions, I think. Councillor Cristani?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder whether this is necessary at all, because, and I will do respect, and I heard most of the argument, because we already have a quick grants program, we already have sponsorship programs. This is trying to take away from that in some regards.
Point of order.
Point of order. What's your point of order, Councillor Aziz?
Error of fact, the quick response grants actually service the club's administrative needs, and sometimes there are service needs, but purely administrative needs. This initiative is purely about charity. It's actually about distributing public funds to deliver charitable work to the community, not to satisfy a particular club's administrative needs.
Can I just finish my debate?
On that, I'll just have to adjudicate that. On this instance, you are correct. I guess also community grants are up to $3,000, which clubs can apply for, and that may be for an event, not just for administration. So, Councillor, you do have a point up with the community grants that are up to $3,000 that clubs can apply for as well for a number of different criteria.
Yep. Can I just finish my question? I would suggest we consider raising the community grants to 5,000 rather than fit this in. I think that there's a lot of charities that are doing work. I mean, the churches do an enormous amount of work and don't get paid for it. So I just wonder, this is maybe the time to consider the way we do business in this space. Thank you.
Mr Mayor?
Could I ask, is Callum around? Could you were in charge of community grants. Is there scope to increase community grants to 5,000 from 3,000 in a rate-capped environment? Do we have the funds to do that?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it'd fundamentally result in a decrease in funding to other service organisations in reality.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stapledon.
Mr Mayor, just 2 points. One is I do see grants differently to sponsorship. And that's why I'm asking for a report. I actually don't really want to sully the intent of this, because my intentions are good. They are a good club. So I don't want to start debating about what we're going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul. The reason I'm asking for a report and not asking that we agree to sponsor them 5,000 a year is simply to ask the officers to go away and have a look at it. Robbing from other clubs might occur now, but it won't be that case if we budget for it. So I'm asking for a report on to see how we might be able to do it. And I really do feel that maybe 2 and 3 need to come out, because I think it's now started a debate that we don't need to have. So I'm no longer support this with items 2 and 3. I'd like to have them removed, Mr Mayor.
My question, Councillor Christine, and Councillor Stapledon, and then I'll come to Councillor Ziz, is if you're asking for a report, what if the report comes back and says we need to consolidate some policy in regard to clubs?
I'll consider the report when it comes back, Mr Mayor. It's just we're second-guessing the report before we've got it. All I want is a report to find a way, and I will hope for some goodwill in relation to this, to find a way, because I have seen the Rotary Club of Cranbourne miss out on so much opportunity in terms of sponsorship when others have got it, and I know that they don't always put in for grants because they like to wheel their own barrow, but I really would like to support them in this way, and that's why I'm asking for the report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ziz.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'm very conscious of how my suggested amendments may actually impact on the original intent of the motion moved by Councillor Stapledon and seconded by Councillor Rowe. I still believe there are broader policy issues that need to be considered. So what I will ask you to do, Mr Mayor, with your indulgence, is to allow me to withdraw points 2 and 3, but also to allow me to foreshadow a further motion at this stage. That way we keep the issues separate, and that further motion might address some of the funding impediments raised by sorry, I only know you as Callum. You've said it. By Callum Paddy. And who? Paddy. Mr Paddy. Raised by Mr Paddy. Thank you.
So we have leave of council to take out the 2 points.
Yeah, I think that would be better. Thank you.
So do we have leave of council to take out points 2 and whatever the other one was?
Yeah, it's taken out.
It's taken out.
I just foreshadow a further motion,
okay.
if I may.
So is everyone happy with that? So we have the original recommendation back in front of us. Are there any further questions or dissent on the matter? Then that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Ziz.
Mr Mayor, I ask that we reintroduce the points that were eliminated from the previous motion.
Oh, sorry. That was carried, was it? Yep.
Yes.
Yes, they're right, sorry.
So if I ask, and if you would allow me, Mr Mayor, just the capacity to undertake some further wordsmithing.
Yep, so the ones that we've just, so, yep, scroll up. Yep, no, this is a new motion. So, yep, so, yep. So, no, it'll be 1 and 2. So you just council, so this is a new motion. No, keep that. Just go council. It will work. It's foreshadowed. So
that becomes 1 and 2 of my foreshadowed motion.
Yep.
If we could take away the word "also" to begin with. So the council investigate. The feasibility of introducing a uniform policy that would facilitate the city's support at a maximum annual amount to service clubs rather than Rotary clubs for the purposes of charity. And I'm happy to leave the rest as the same, and I'm happy to introduce Mr. Mayor.
So that'll be, so Councillor Aziz is moving that?
You may introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
so I move that in my name.
We need a seconder now. Councillor Rowe, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roy. Mr. Mayor, I think it's really critical that the City of Casey makes a statement on what it does to support charity. We don't have a defined program for charity at the moment, and various groups come to us seeking various amounts, which we do oblige, but I think in the interest of fairness and transparency, it's important that we have a uniform policy and that we allocate budgetary dollars to it when we come to determine the annual budget. We may not be talking about a lot of money. I remember when I first got elected and I was concerned because of the global financial crisis that we really needed to strengthen business in the City of Casey. So I moved for the allocation of $2,000 each to every Chamber of Commerce in the City of Casey, and that funding has been occurring since 2008, 2009. And I know that the business groups or the chambers really appreciate that. So we have engaged in that type of funding in the past to strengthen our community. As I say, when you're looking at a $400 million budget, it's not a lot of money to allocate, you know, sub $100,000 annually to support various charities. And the assistant programs don't need to be an automatic allocation, Mr. Mayor. They can operate very much along the lines of a competitive process, as we do with our community grants, where people make a case, demonstrate how many residents would benefit from the charity program that they're seeking the funding for, and then there can be a meritorious conclusion or a meritorious decision reached on the basis of the elements of their application, rather than us allocating an automatic annual amount of whatever quantum. So I think this is an important policy shift for us, and it sprung tonight out of Councillor Stapledon's notice of motion. Again, we are seeking a report, so we're not committing funds at this stage, we're not making decisions, we're not engineering the architecture of this program before us as we speak. But we are looking at the possibility of making a very strong policy statement on supporting charity and helping less fortunate residents in our community, Mr. Mayor, and I commend the new motion to the Chamber.
Yeah. Councillor, just one quick question. You said a report, but you haven't mentioned a report come back. Do you want to do that, or...?
Yeah, I can. I guess it's sort of implicit in the motion that, you know, when you investigate something, you do come back with a report. But perhaps if I can even include a report and suggest when it might come back to Council. We've just approved the budget, so this is not going to be something for the new financial year, which only started 3 days ago. I hope you all had a good New Year's Eve party, but I want to suggest perhaps that we, that Council investigate, the Council provide a report before the end of the current calendar year. Does that put us in frame for the mid-year submission for the budget?
Motion forward. Any dissent? That is carried. Councillor Stapledon, 3237, do one thing for autism campaign.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move this notice of motion in my name.
Second by Councillor Rowe.
Thank you very much. To my fellow councillors and council officers, I'd just like to mention why I'm raising this notice of motion. There's a number of reasons. One is that I actually saw this campaign advertised on television a number of months ago, so it is ongoing. It's an ongoing campaign, and it is about purely and simply raising awareness about autism and how to deal with it. It further cemented my resolve to raise this notice of motion when I saw a dear boy in his teens being attacked at a school by a group of bullies. This boy had autism and he was very, very severely hurt by the attacks. They were physical, and his mate, who was trying to protect him, also was very, very injured as a result. It made me realise that we haven't come a long way in the area of autism. We know the word, we think we know what it means, but we don't always. And it's been my personal experience that people say they understand about autism, and this is certainly in a caring environment, and then you find out that they don't like the things that, or don't understand the things that are done with a person that is autistic. So I think the one thing, as we're moving towards looking at employing people and giving job experience to people with disabilities, the thing about autism is we think we understand it, but we don't necessarily. Autism is not about expecting a person with autism to come into our world and train them up the way we'd like them to do things. It actually is about going into theirs first. You need to go into their world, you need to be able to lower anxiety levels, set them up with the structures and the supports that they need. They might need strict routine, they might need something as simple as separating their veggies on a plate. Even a person who has a high IQ and has autism, there are certain triggers that really do upset them, and we need to understand what they are or what they could potentially be. So why am I raising this for council? Because I would love to see us commit to something that would help us to understand people who have autism and how to deal with them, and to make the environment that we're in a better place to be for these people. What I'm hoping, and I'm leaving this entirely to the each individual council. Mr Mayor, you might set some direction and agree that we do something collectively, or we might want to do something individually. That could be just simply sharing the Amaze link for Do One Thing for Autism, to let people know on your Facebook and your emails, or even tell someone about this campaign so we can get involved. The actual website is fantastic. It really does explain things very well, and really takes away any scariness about the autistic condition, and helps us to understand and better embrace these wonderful, wonderful people who see this world at times a little differently to what we do. What I'd like to also do is ask if the officers might consider what they might do, ask the acting CEO in relation to this. It might be, and this would be the best outcome in my opinion, is to have someone come in and really talk about autism. There are often experts that can come in and talk about it. Professor Tong, who's very involved with mental health and is a specialist on autism, he'd be one. And then often they bring along with them someone who has autism, who might talk about how they'll go into a shopping centre and they have an absolute meltdown. They're perfectly functional in every other way, but it's because the fluoro lights are flashing, the noises, they don't often have a lot of filters, so the noise is too loud and they can't cope with all the people, the noise, the busyness, and they can't work their way through so that they feel calm and relaxed in that environment. So, there is so much to learn about this condition, and I just love this campaign, and I hope that we can spread the word to everyone to let them know how much of a role we can play in embracing people with autism and encouraging our colleagues and our friends and family to do the same. Now, just the footnote down the bottom is that Council invite the Casey Library Corporation to join the campaign in concert with the City of Casey, and this is because Chris Buckingham, who I'm on a number of committees with, I spoke to him about it and he was very, very keen to get on board. He already had some ideas, which is just fantastic. So if we could invite him to come on board as well. And if you might notice, dot point 2, we're going to notify all our community centres, neighbourhood houses, sporting groups, and about the campaign, and providing them with the details and encouraging them, that'll be the link by the way, and encouraging them to get involved. So I do encourage my fellow councillors and council to get involved. I look forward to the report coming back. If anybody has any queries about how they might be able to get involved other than what I've just mentioned, I'm really happy to talk to anyone that would like to ask.
Thank you, Councillor Stapledon. Very well put, and congratulations on a great cause. I think it sums it up pretty well. Any questions or dissent on that? Then that is carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Jackson, you want to acknowledge some very special guests this evening?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and forgive me, Mr Mayor, for not doing it at the start of this evening, Mr Mayor. Tonight in the gallery, we've got the Berwick woodworkers here with us, and they've sat through the entire council meeting despite the matter that they were here for being done with very early in the council meeting. So I thank them very much, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, they were here in relation to some funding in relation to the master plan at the cheese factory that sees a new premises for them in a great location and a great outcome for the community. So I want to just acknowledge them in the gallery tonight. Thank them absolutely for the wonderful work that they do for the community. Talk about delivering in charity that we've talked about tonight, Mr Mayor. That is one group that absolutely provides to our community. So I want to thank you very much for being here. Thank you for all the work that you are doing.
Round of applause, please. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I did skip through urgent business because I didn't think there was any. Has anybody got any? No? Then before I move into closed council, I do apologise again for wearing these ridiculous dark glasses. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Can I please get a mover and seconder to move that council resolve itself into closed council and resume after a 5-minute adjournment? Moved by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Cristani. Any dissent? That is carried. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. We've been working with the eye for what?